Millionaire leaves his pregnant wife for young Mistress, then regrets it when this happens. In a world drenched in opulence, where lavish galas and glittering diamonds veil the darkest of secrets, one woman's life is about to unravel in ways she never imagined. Meet Juliana Prescott, an elegant socialite married to the powerful millionaire Derek Prescott. Their world is full of exotic vacations, front-row seats at New York Fashion Week, and philanthropic soirees that headline major publications like Vogue and the New York Times. But when Juliana finds herself pregnant with their first child, everything she thought she knew comes crashing down. Betrayal, heartbreak, and a twist of fate will set the stage for the ultimate karmic reckoning. Juliana Prescott leaned against the marble balustrade of her penthouse balcony, overlooking the twinkling lights of Manhattan. Her hand rested lightly on her abdomen, still flat, but already carrying a secret too precious for words. She was just over 7 weeks pregnant, having learned the news only a few days prior. Her heart fluttered with anticipation at the thought of sharing this joy with her husband. Derek, a rising star in the world of high finance, a self-made millionaire who had grown his hedge fund from a modest startup into an industry juggernaut. They'd met 4 years ago at a charity gala hosted at the Guggenheim, benefiting youth arts programs. Juliana, a gallery curator at the time, had been showcasing works by up-and-coming artists. Derek, sporting tailored Armani and an air of unshakable confidence, had strolled in as one of the major donors. Their connection was instant. Within a year, they were engaged. The next, they were married in an extravagant ceremony at the historic Plaza Hotel. The society pages raved about the union, a match of wealth, charm, and philanthropic hearts. Yet, something had been off lately. Derek was traveling more often, citing urgent investor deals in London, Hong Kong, or Dubai. His phone was perpetually locked, notifications hidden behind cryptic codes. Whenever Juliana asked about his exhausting schedule, he brushed her off with quick excuses, plying her with expensive gifts, a Cartier watch, limited edition Louboutin heels, or weekend getaways to exclusive resorts. She told herself it was just the cost of success. Still, the hollow ache in her chest whispered that something else was amiss. The night she found out about her pregnancy, she'd planned a candlelit dinner in their massive dining room with floor-to-ceiling windows. She adorned the table with fresh roses, prepared Derek's favorite meal, and waited only to receive a curt text that he'd be pulling an all-nighter at the office. Disappointed, she went to bed, a swirl of emotions enveloping her. She woke to a quick peck on the forehead as Derek rushed out early the next morning, leaving no time for heartfelt confessions. Standing on the balcony now, Juliana inhaled the cool night air, summoning courage for what lay ahead. She vowed to tell him that evening, no matter how late he came home, no matter what distractions might arise. Their relationship deserved at least this moment of joy without any secrecy. Little did she know that her news, so ripe with hope, would intersect with a darker turn of events, one that would change the trajectory of her marriage forever. That same afternoon, Derek texted Juliana to cancel their dinner plans for the 3rd time that week. Important client in from Shanghai, the message read. Don't wait up. Juliana exhaled in frustration, but resolved to keep her composure. She told herself that once she gave him the news about her pregnancy, Derek would undoubtedly realign his priorities. She spent the evening in a swirl of anxious expectation, lighting a single vanilla-scented candle on the kitchen counter to create some semblance of warmth in their otherwise quiet home. Around 9 o'clock, she heard a key jingle at the door. Heart pounding, she rushed to greet Derek only to see him stride in with an impatient scowl. Phone pressed to his ear. Look, Gavin, I'm telling you we need to close that position by Friday, he barked to whoever was on the other end. He breezed past Juliana, without so much as a glance, dropping a sleek briefcase on the marble floor. "Yes, we'll finalize it at the morning conference call." Right, fine." Juliana stood by the foyer, arms crossed over her sweater, waiting. When Derek finally ended the call, she took a tentative step toward him. "Derek, can we talk?" He sighed, loosening his tie. "I'm exhausted, Jules. Make it quick." His dismissive tone stung, but she pressed on. "It's important." I'm pregnant," she said quietly, forcing a small smile that trembled around the edges. Derek's eyes flicked up in surprise. For a moment, a flash of emotion crossed his features. Was it joy, or fear, or something else? Then he set his jaw, muttering something about timing and major deals in progress. "That's... wow," he finally managed, but it sounded more obligatory than genuine. "We'll figure it out. Let's talk tomorrow, okay?" He then brushed past her, heading for their bedroom. Juliana was left standing alone, candle flickering in the hush. She felt a hollowness in her chest. This moment was supposed to be special, a life-altering milestone. Instead, Derek treated it like a minor footnote in a busy schedule. Over the next few days, small clues began to mount. Late nights at the office turned into unexplained absences. Derek's phone calls became guarded. Once, Juliana caught a glimpse of his phone screen lighting up with the name Celeste, followed by an immediate swipe to dismiss the call. When she tried to ask who Celeste was, he grew defensive, snapping that it was strictly business. An uneasy suspicion gnawed at Juliana. She wanted to believe that Derek was merely overwhelmed by the demands of his hedge fund, especially with big clients like those rumored to be linked to high-profile figures, maybe even real estate mogul Donald Trump or tech tycoon Elon Musk. Yet deep down, she sensed that their marriage was shifting onto precarious ground. And no matter how often she told herself otherwise, the red flags were undeniably there, waving more insistently by the day. On an overcast Wednesday, Juliana decided to visit Derek's office unannounced. She told herself it was a spontaneous gesture of affection, a chance to bring him lunch from his favorite Thai place and share a quiet moment to discuss the pregnancy. Secretly, she also hoped to quell the nagging sense of mistrust that had blossomed in her heart. The lobby of Prescott Capital exuded sleek professionalism, polished granite floors, a gleaming reception desk, and modern art installations that Derek had personally selected. Clutching a takeout bag and her handbag, Juliana made her way to the top floor, politely smiling at the staff members who recognized her. Upon reaching Derek's personal assistant, a young man named Clyde, she was met with an awkward pause. "Oh, Mrs. Prescott." "Hello," Clyde said, fiddling nervously with a stack of papers. "I wasn't aware you had an appointment." Juliana forced a casual tone. "I just thought I'd surprise Derek with some lunch." "Is he in a meeting?" He's in his office, but he asked not to be disturbed," Clyde replied, eyes darting to the closed door. "Maybe I should check." But Juliana had already stepped forward, refusing to let her own insecurities hold her back. She tapped lightly on the frosted glass pane, then pushed the door open. The scene inside the office froze her in her tracks. Derek stood near his desk with a striking woman in a tailored white dress, her platinum blonde hair cascading over slender shoulders. They were close enough that it looked intimate, as if they'd sprung apart the moment Juliana opened the door. The woman's lips parted slightly, a faint smirk crossing her face. "Jules, what are you doing here?" Derek said, his voice taut with surprise and annoyance. He moved swiftly away from the blonde, gesturing for Juliana to enter. "This is Celeste." "She's an investor," Celeste cut in smoothly, extending a manicured hand. "Lovely to finally meet you, Mrs. Prescott. Derek's told me so much about you." Something in her eyes suggested she was far more than a mere investor. Juliana's pulse hammered. The air in the room felt stifling, charged with unspoken tension. She forced herself to accept Celeste's handshake, noticing the faint, expensive perfume that clung to her skin, a scent suspiciously familiar. One Juliana had smelled once on Derek's jacket. "I just brought lunch," Juliana managed, lifting the takeout bag in a gesture that felt suddenly foolish. Derek cleared his throat. "Thanks, Jules. Celeste and I were just finalizing some private equity details. Why don't we talk later?" It was a dismissal, plain and simple. With her cheeks burning, Juliana placed the food on his desk and murmured something about seeing you at home. As she left, she could feel Celeste's gaze trailing her, assessing her like a rival. And in that moment, the seeds of her deepest fear finally took root. Derek's business trip excuses and late-night secrets might revolve around this impeccably styled blonde, whose mere presence crackled with an unmistakable undercurrent of seduction. Days turned into a blur of tension for Juliana. She replayed the memory of Celeste's smug expression, the subtle distance Derek had placed between them in his office, clearly not an accidental pose. The lunch she'd brought him remained untouched by the time he returned home that night. She spotted the white paper bag still on a side table in the foyer, as though it had been delivered by a courier, not by his pregnant wife. Unable to bear the uncertainty any longer, she confronted Derek one late evening when he finally slunk into the penthouse. He smelled of whiskey and faint traces of that same perfume. "Who is Celeste?" Juliana demanded, stepping into his path. Her voice trembled, but her resolve was iron. "I know she's more than just an investor." Derek ran a hand through his hair, an uncharacteristic flicker of guilt crossing his features. But then his face hardened. "She's a friend and a critical partner. She's helping me expand Prescott Capital into European markets. That's all. Don't lie to me," Juliana hissed, tears pricking her eyes. "I saw how you looked at each other. I'm not blind, Derek." He let out a frustrated breath. "Fine, we're seeing each other, but it isn't what you think. It's not serious. It's just business can be stressful, and Celeste understands that world in a way you never could." His words struck like a physical blow. Her heart pounded as she tried to process the admission, half-truth, though it clearly was. "You're cheating on me," she said, her voice hollow, "while I'm pregnant with our child." Derek's gaze flicked away, unable to deny it. "I didn't plan for it to happen. Celeste has connections, resources. She's offering more than just a fling. She can help the firm reach new heights. Everything I've built is riding on these next few months, Jules." A strangled sob escaped Juliana's throat. She could scarcely believe what she was hearing. Was he rationalizing his betrayal as a strategic business move? Her trembling hand instinctively moved to her belly. "You're risking our marriage for some ambition you already have. We have more money than we could ever spend. Why are you doing this?" Derek hesitated, glancing away. "I'm sorry," he mumbled at last. But the words lacked true remorse. "I didn't mean to hurt you. Maybe. We just need some time apart. I can't handle the pressure of a baby right now. Not with everything else going on." The finality in his tone left Juliana speechless. She thought of the vow they had made, how they'd promised to face life's obstacles together. Instead, she was pregnant and alone in a penthouse that suddenly felt cavernous and cold. Derek was choosing Celeste and his relentless climb toward financial domination, leaving Juliana to wonder how her love and the child growing inside her had been overshadowed by corporate deals and an affair he deemed not serious. Not a full week had passed since Derek's half-hearted confession when he dropped a far more devastating blow on Juliana. He was moving out. Standing in the foyer amidst half-packed suitcases and crisp garment bags, he barely met her eyes as he explained the situation in bland, business-like terms. Celeste has a penthouse suite at the Mandarin Oriental, he said, as if that detail clarified everything. It's temporary, just until we finalize the European investment expansions. I can't function under this constant tension with you. We'll discuss the baby's future once things settle down. Juliana's mind reeled. Was he truly leaving her pregnant, vulnerable for another woman's high-rise hotel suite? Nausea churned in her stomach, and her pulse thundered in her ears. She'd always known Derek was ambitious, but never in her wildest nightmares had she imagined he would sacrifice their marriage and unborn child for corporate growth and a mistress's bed. Is that all I am now? Tension, she asked, voice trembling. The tears had already started flowing, no matter how fiercely she tried to blink them away. You can't just walk out on me like this. We vowed for better or worse. Derek's face remained stony. I'm not walking out. I just need space. And you need to accept that my world is bigger now. Things aren't the same as they were when we first got married. He snapped a leather suitcase shut and brushed past her. I'll be in touch, he muttered. Then, in a moment of staggering coldness, he added, I'll have my attorney send over some paperwork. Just something to protect the business. That's all. And with that, he was gone. The echo of the door shutting behind him reverberated through the massive penthouse, a sound that shattered every last illusion Juliana had clung to. She sank onto a nearby chaise lounge, sobbing, her arms wrapped protectively around her midsection. This penthouse, once a haven of love and opulent celebrations, now felt like a gilded prison. The man she loved, who once whispered sweet promises in this very foyer, had effectively chosen to vanish from her life. The next few days passed in a haze of grief. She avoided calls from well-meaning friends who wanted to chat about charity events or brunch dates, dreading the inevitable question, how's Derek? The only person she confided in was her sister, Eva, who lived in Boston and arrived without question the moment Juliana explained her predicament. While Eva tried to lend emotional support, the reality felt insurmountable. Derek's departure left not just an emotional void, but a practical one. Medical appointments for the baby, financial details, and looming legal complexities that were sure to arise. Juliana had never navigated these waters alone. Yet here she was, left behind in a swirl of heartbreak and confusion, facing her pregnancy without the husband who had promised to cherish and protect her. Within mere days of Derek's abrupt departure, Juliana found her life becoming an open secret whispered through the upscale parlors and private clubs of Manhattan's elite. Previously, her social calendar overflowed with invitations to charity luncheons, museum galas, and art openings. Now, each passing hour brought new hints of scandal. Friends exchanged hushed comments, tabloids posted blurry snapshots, and social media buzzed with speculation about the split between the Prescotts. In an online gossip thread, someone even shared a photo of Derek entering the Mandarin Oriental with Celeste, clinging possessively to his arm, a chilling contrast to the gentle way he once held Juliana's hand. The tabloids, always hungry for a fresh angle, crafted sensational stories around Derek's meteoric career and sudden change in marital status. One of the most jarring pieces appeared in the New York Post, titled, "When Business Gets Too Personal," vaguely alluding to an affair between the hedge fund prodigy and a mysterious European investor. Names weren't printed outright, but everyone in Juliana's circle could connect the dots. Overnight, her phone brimmed with messages, some from concerned acquaintances offering lukewarm sympathies, others from opportunistic gossip hounds feigning friendship to extract juicy details. The surge of attention felt overwhelming, like a tidal wave that threatened to sweep her away just when she most needed stability. Desperate for some sense of control, Juliana did the only thing she could think of. She withdrew. She declined invitations to every event where cameras might lurk, worried that a single tearful moment or stray comment would be twisted into clickbait headlines. It saddened her to miss out on gatherings she once found meaningful, like the annual fundraisers at the Metropolitan Museum of Art or the cozy dinner parties hosted by longtime friends. But each potential outing felt fraught with risk. She couldn't bear to hear the hush of pitying whispers or witness people's eyes flicker to her midsection now that rumors of her pregnancy had begun circulating. In the quiet space of her penthouse, she sought solace in small, steady routines. She visited her obstetrician on schedule, faithfully attending every prenatal checkup. On her doctor's advice, she started gentle yoga classes designed for expectant mothers, where instructors guided participants through calming stretches and breath work. Moving deliberately through each posture, Juliana felt a flicker of empowerment. Even if her life seemed chaotic on the outside, she could honor the life growing within her by caring for her own body. The teacher's soothing voice reminded her, "Inhale strength, exhale worry," and, for a few precious moments, she believed it. Her sister, Eva, remained a steadfast presence, standing firmly by Juliana's side when others peeled away or withdrew under the weight of gossip. Eva's protective nature surfaced in practical, nurturing gestures, stocking Juliana's kitchen with fresh produce, ensuring she stayed hydrated and encouraging her to explore creative outlets like journaling or painting when anxiety weighed heavily on her. In the stillness of her new daily rhythm, Juliana began to sense the faintest flutters of movement in her belly. At first, it was barely discernible, like a butterfly's wings brushing against her insides. Yet every time she felt it, her mood lifted. Those tiny signals reminded her that she was never completely alone and that the child she carried was a promise of hope in her darkest hours. While she worked to shield herself from public prying, Derek found himself awash in a different kind of spotlight. Bloomberg and CNBC celebrated Prescott Capital's impressive leaps in valuation, attributing its success to a massive infusion of European funds. Photos of Derek and Celeste, impeccably dressed and brimming with confidence, made the rounds on social media. Whether attending business summits in Paris or private investor dinners in London, they exuded the synergy of a formidable power couple. Some outlets likened them to unstoppable titans, praising Celeste's clear-headed strategy in guiding Prescott Capital's expansion. For Juliana, each article and photo felt like a dagger twisting deeper, not only because she saw Derek standing where she might once have stood, but also because public opinion seemed to validate his decisions. If the world applauded him for moving forward, then where did that leave her? Alone in a penthouse, pregnant and nursing heartbreak. Anger began to burn, simmering beneath layers of sadness. Why should her ex-husband bask in professional accolades while she fought off sleepless nights and braved awkward stares from neighbors? Doubts churned in her mind. Had she been too pliant, too trusting? Perhaps she should have demanded more answers when Derek's behavior first turned evasive, or insisted he attend relationship counseling. Instead, she had believed his every excuse, convinced that love conquered all, only to discover that his ambition and affair had conquered their marriage. Often, she felt the urge to shout her side of the story from every rooftop, to release her raw pain in a way that would counteract the image of him as a visionary business genius. But she couldn't do that, not while pregnant and emotionally vulnerable. She had to protect her baby, her health, her dignity. Still, the swirl of injustice weighed heavily on her heart. During one restless evening, she scrolled through social media, intending to close her accounts altogether to escape the toxic feed of rumors and speculation. Before she could hit deactivate, she noticed a simple comment under a post discussing the scandal. "Hold on, girl. The truth always comes out, and karma isn't blind." The words struck her like a quiet revelation. Could it be that time itself would unravel the lies and illusions that propped up Derek's success? She read the comment over and over, feeling its resonance grow with each repetition. She realized that she didn't need to tear Derek down publicly or wage a media war. Life and its cyclical nature might handle that in due course. Her priority was to stay resilient, to channel her energy into welcoming her child into the world under the most peaceful conditions possible. Setting her phone aside, Juliana found renewed focus. She began creating a vision board for the nursery, gathering swatches of pastel fabric and whimsical prints. She listed out baby names that carried special meaning, imagining the future occupant of the snug crib she'd just ordered. In these moments, she sensed an unspoken power, building one that wasn't rooted in wealth or social clout, but in the love and willpower of an expectant mother forging a path forward. Though the city's gossip columns might paint her as the jilted spouse in a tawdry soap opera, she knew the truth was far more nuanced. She was a woman choosing to rise above betrayal, forging her own kind of quiet triumph. And if somewhere in the background, a cosmic balancing act had begun, one that would hold Derek accountable for his choices, then she would let that justice unfold in its own time. Her journey now centered on healing, nurturing new life, and finding the confidence that her worth did not hinge on any man's applause or acceptance. In that uncertain chapter of her life, coping with scandal required more than just hiding from the cameras. It demanded a steadfast belief that heartbreak could pave the way to inner strength. With every prenatal milestone and every gentle breath in her yoga practice, Juliana vowed to reclaim her story. She would survive the rumors, the pitying glances, and even the memories of what she had lost. After all, as that anonymous commenter had reminded her, karma was far from blind, and in the quiet corners of her mind, she trusted that one day the scales of fate would tip in her favor. About a month into her separation, Juliana received the first official legal summons from Derek's attorneys. The paperwork, thick and intimidating, outlined a proposed arrangement that resembled a neat transaction more than a marital reconciliation. The documents suggested an amicable separation, with provisions for monthly support during her pregnancy, followed by a more comprehensive settlement once the child was born. In exchange, Derek demanded certain waivers pertaining to the distribution of Prescott Capital's assets. She felt a fresh wave of hurt as she realized how systematically Derek was trying to reduce their relationship to line items and legal jargon. Could love be discounted so easily? She promptly contacted a reputable family law firm, Sullivan and Hardy, recommended by a family friend. Her assigned attorney, Marianne Hardy, urged her to remain calm. He's playing financial hardball. We'll respond in kind, Marianne assured. While the lawyers sparred, Juliana busied herself with practical matters. She scheduled prenatal classes, occasionally texting Derek updates about the baby's health, ultrasounds, heartbeat checks, but received either terse replies or complete silence. It stung that the man who once daydreamed about teaching their future child to ride a bike now barely acknowledged the baby's existence. Meanwhile, Derek and Celeste seemed to be thriving, or so the media portrayed. They were photographed dining at Carbone, sitting courtside at Knicks games, and hosting a lavish investor gala at a 5-star venue. An article in Vanity Fair even hailed them as a new power duo in the finance world. The paparazzi shots showed them smiling, carefree, while Juliana was at home dealing with round-the-clock nausea and surging hormones. Behind the scenes, though, small rumors trickled Juliana's way, hints that not everyone was enthralled with this new power duo. Some business insiders whispered that Celeste was demanding more than just a seat at the table. She was aiming to reshape Prescott Capital entirely, with little regard for the loyal staff who'd helped Derek build his empire. Others questioned how exactly Celeste had risen so quickly in financial circles. A few suspected her wealth came from shadowy dealings in Eastern Europe, though no one had proof. Derek, enthralled by her drive and connections, seemed willfully blind to any warning signs. In hushed corners of Manhattan's social scene, acquaintances expressed pity for Juliana's plight, while simultaneously speculating on the potential meltdown if Celeste's grand ambitions clashed with Derek's. Juliana, however, wanted no part in petty gossip. She cared only about finding stability for herself and her child. Still, something about these rumors nagged at her. She wondered if Derek had realized that by chasing Celeste's glow, he might be allowing a Trojan horse into his carefully built kingdom. For now, all Juliana could do was brace herself. Lawyers' letters piled up, the tabloids churned out half-truths, and every day she felt her baby grow stronger within her. Derek might dismiss her as a mere footnote in his new, bigger world, but she sensed that forces both seen and unseen were aligning in ways none of them could predict. A few weeks later, Derek stood in the luxury suite at the Mandarin Oriental, gazing across Central Park with a satisfied smirk. The suite, decked in plush furnishings and floor-to-ceiling windows, felt like the perfect setting for his new life. Celeste was sprawled on the chaise lounge behind him, tapping away at a sleek laptop. She had just finalized a high-profile meeting in Switzerland, a move that promised to bring hundreds of millions in capital to Prescott's new European fund. His phone buzzed. Reading the screen, Derek's expression grew somber. It was a text from Marianne Hardy, the lawyer representing Juliana. She was requesting an urgent meeting to discuss the ongoing negotiations and the welfare of the unborn child. For the first time in weeks, Derek felt a pang of guilt. He hadn't even checked in on Juliana's pregnancy, not in any real sense, and the baby was due in a few months. Bad news? Celeste asked, her tone dismissive. She hardly glanced up from her screen. "It's about Juliana," he replied, tension creeping into his voice. "Her lawyers want more support. They claim the settlement I proposed is insufficient, especially given the circumstances." A flicker of defensiveness lit his eyes. "I can't focus on these constant demands while I'm trying to close major deals." Celeste offered a dismissive shrug, focusing instead on an email from a Swiss banker. "Derek, dear, you have to let your legal team handle it. You shouldn't let these personal entanglements derail your bigger goals." Something in her words grated on him. Personal entanglements. That was his wife and child she was trivializing. Yet he swallowed his discomfort, rationalizing that Celeste was simply a woman of business. Her directness was part of what attracted him in the first place, wasn't it? Still, in quiet moments, Derek found himself replaying memories, Juliana's laughter echoing in their old living room as they slow danced to jazz records, her delighted tears the day they discovered she was pregnant. He'd shrugged off those emotions before, but lately they pricked at him in the silence of the night. He wondered if he'd been too hasty throwing away a marriage for an alliance that benefited his ambitions more than his heart. Gradually, small cracks emerged in his relationship with Celeste. She grew impatient any time personal matters overshadowed corporate strategy. She questioned every minor financial detail in Prescott Capital, at times undermining staff who'd been loyal to Derek from the beginning. She was a hawk, poised to seize control, and it became increasingly clear that she enjoyed wielding power, perhaps more than Derek himself. By the end of the evening, after Celeste had turned in, Derek scrolled through old photos on his phone. He paused on an image of Juliana from last Christmas, beaming in front of their decorated tree. A pang of regret flickered in him. Was he losing something priceless in exchange for a precarious alliance? Flicking off the phone, he tried to dispel the doubts, reminding himself that success required sacrifices. But deep down, the first seeds of real unease had taken root, ones that even Celeste's glamorous persona couldn't fully dispel. As her pregnancy advanced, Juliana found solace in small routines: morning walks in the park, afternoon teas with her sister, and evenings spent reading parenting books. On one crisp autumn day, she decided to visit a newly opened maternity boutique on Madison Avenue. Eva accompanied her, offering moral support. They browsed through racks of elegant dresses designed to accommodate a growing bump. For a moment, Juliana felt a sense of normalcy, as if she were just another expectant mother preparing for a joyous future. Then, stepping out of the boutique, Juliana froze in place. Across the street, Derek was walking alongside Celeste, their pace brisk and their heads lowered as they conversed intently. They hadn't seen her yet, her heart hammered. This was the first time she'd crossed paths with them in public since Derek left. Reflexively, she ducked behind a large window display, Eva at her side. "Do you want to confront him?" Eva whispered, eyes brimming with sisterly fury. "He's right there." Juliana's pulse raced. Part of her wanted to march up and demand an explanation for his absence, for ignoring doctor's appointments, for failing to show even a shred of decency. But another part feared a public scene, which would likely end in heartbreak and a paparazzi storm. She shook her head, silent tears threatening to spill. "No, not here," she finally managed. But fate had other plans. Derek, searching for a passing taxi, turned in their direction. His gaze locked onto Juliana's, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. He caught sight of her rounded belly, a stark reminder of the life he was missing out on. His expression flashed from surprise to something akin to regret. Celeste followed his line of sight, her face darkening. Juliana swallowed. Summoning courage, she took a few steps forward, allowing Eva to remain by her side. They were still separated by the busy street, with honking taxis and jostling pedestrians. She raised a trembling hand in a half-wave, an uncertain gesture, as though bridging the chasm between them. Derek hesitated, started to step off the curb to cross, but Celeste tugged him back by the arm. She whispered something, her eyes cold, and steered him toward a waiting black SUV. Within moments, they were gone. Juliana stood there, breath hitching. What hurt more, seeing Derek's conflicted face or watching him allow Celeste to pull him away? The moment hammered home a painful truth. No matter the stirring of guilt or regret in Derek's eyes, he was still aligned with the woman who had replaced Juliana in his life. And that passing instant, fleeting as it was, jolted her to realize that she deserved more than half-baked regret and broken promises. Eva squeezed her arm gently. "You all right?" she asked. Juliana dabbed at her eyes. "I will be," she answered, voice trembling. "I have to be." They walked away from the boutique, unspoken determination fueling Juliana's steps. She might have been ignored today, but she refused to remain invisible, especially not when her future, and her child's future, hung in the balance. While Derek juggled mounting guilt and Celeste's demands, a quiet storm was brewing at Prescott Capital. Celeste had been forging new deals at a breakneck pace, impressing investors with her bold strategies. Yet behind the glossy presentations, staffers began to whisper about suspicious transactions. Some junior analysts mentioned unverified wire transfers that bypassed the usual compliance checks, amounts channeled into shell companies they couldn't trace. The CFO, Russell Chang, discreetly flagged these anomalies, only to be brushed off by Celeste's personal assistant. Late one night, Derek found himself alone in the suite, scanning through financial summaries from his tablet. Celeste had flown to Zurich under the guise of finalizing a major investment, but a sense of unease crept over him as he clicked through spreadsheets. Certain line items didn't match up. He noticed large sums labeled as marketing expenses routed through obscure affiliates in Eastern Europe. The next day, he confronted one of his top financial officers over the phone. "Why are these funds being diverted? Who approved this?" There was a pause. "We thought you did, sir," came the cautious reply. "Miss Celeste said she had direct instructions from you to expedite these transfers. She even showed us an email with your signature." Derek's stomach twisted. He had never sent such an email. With a rising sense of dread, he rummaged through his email archives, discovering no record of the instructions Celeste claimed to have. It dawned on him that she might have forged internal authorizations to reroute money for her own ends. That evening, Celeste returned from Zurich, exuding confidence. Over a glass of champagne, she boasted about securing a new wave of European capital. But Derek cut her off, brandishing his tablet. "Care to explain these transactions?" For an instant, Celeste's face went rigid, her polished veneer cracking. She quickly masked it with a smile. "That was a necessity for a high-level contact. You wouldn't understand the complexities, try me," Derek snapped, voice uncharacteristically icy. "I found no email from me authorizing those funds. You told the team you had my directive." "Which is a lie." Celeste stared at him, then let out a dismissive laugh. "Don't be naive, Derek. This is how real business is done. Grease the right wheels, circumvent slow regulations, and you land massive deals. You wanted to be a titan of finance. This is the price." In that moment, Derek realized the precarious position he was in. Celeste wasn't just a driven partner, she was cunning, capable of manipulating both the business and him. He'd been so infatuated with her swagger and connections that he'd overlooked the red flags. And now, months after abandoning Juliana, he stood at the brink of a scandal that could obliterate everything he'd built. He set down his champagne flute, pulse pounding. For the first time, it struck him that he had traded a loving wife and a stable future for an alliance steeped in deception, and he might be the one paying the steepest price of all. In the following days, Derek scrambled to contain the fallout of Celeste's fraudulent maneuvers. He summoned an emergency board meeting, hoping to rally support and isolate the damage before the media caught wind. But the board members were furious, demanding explanations for the suspicious transactions. Some threatened to resign, fearing legal ramifications for involvement in what could be classified as money laundering. Meanwhile, Celeste expertly deflected blame. She insisted that Derek had been fully informed, insinuating that this was all a tactic to shift guilt onto her. In one heated exchange, she brandished printed emails allegedly from Derek, greenlighting the questionable transfers. His signature, digital watermark, and the company letterhead all appeared genuine. The board was left unsure who to believe. Within a week, a whistleblower leaked details to the press. A scorching headline in the Wall Street Journal read, "Prescott Capital under fraud investigation, millions unaccounted for." Derek's phone lit up with calls from furious clients, anxious investors, and suspicious regulators. The once celebrated hedge fund pioneer now faced accusations that could lead to criminal charges, or at the very least, a devastating collapse in reputation. Rattled, Derek hired forensic experts to analyze the emails, convinced they'd find evidence of forgery. But digital footprints were alarmingly elusive. Celeste had covered her tracks well. Meanwhile, she continued to move about with brazen confidence, publicly proclaiming her innocence and feigning concern for Prescott Capital's future. Some media outlets painted her as a scapegoat, a woman overshadowed by Derek's arrogance, fueling an even bigger PR nightmare for him. As his empire teetered, Derek found himself facing a sobering realization. He'd lost the moral high ground the moment he left Juliana. How could he claim integrity when he'd so callously abandoned his pregnant wife for a mistress who now stood at the center of an unfolding scandal? Late one night, Derek sat alone in the penthouse he used to share with Celeste. She had quietly relocated to an undisclosed location, claiming she needed privacy from the storm. With trembling hands, he dialed Juliana's number. It went to voicemail. "It's me," he said hoarsely. I know I've messed everything up. I'm not even sure why I'm calling. One, just wanted to see how you're doing. And the baby. I miss you, Jules." A pause lingered, heavy with regret. "I'm sorry." He hung up, not expecting a callback. Memories surged. Juliana's gentle smile, the excited glimmer in her eyes when they first dreamed of starting a family. Now he stood on the precipice of a personal and professional meltdown, deserted by the very person he'd once believed was his golden ticket to a bigger, brighter future. In the eerie hush of that lonely penthouse, Derek felt the full weight of karma bearing down, and for the first time he truly feared the consequences of his own choices. 2 months later, Juliana found herself in a birthing suite at Lenox Hill Hospital. The pains had begun early that morning, and by midday they grew into full-blown contractions. Eva was by her side, gripping her hand, providing encouraging words. Despite the surge of excitement and terror that came with labor, a sliver of sadness kept nudging Juliana's thoughts. Derek should have been here. She'd pictured him holding her hand through the pains, whispering reassurances. Instead, she hadn't seen him in person since the morning he packed his bags and left. Her phone buzzed occasionally with missed calls from unknown numbers, presumably Derek's attempts to reach her. She'd never responded. His scandal was plastered all over the media. Prescott Capital's meltdown, allegations of fraud, even rumors that Celeste had fled the country. In a strange twist of fate, the mistress who had lured him away now left him holding a potential criminal bag. But none of that mattered as much as the baby she was about to bring into the world. When the final contractions hit, Juliana bore down, tears and sweat mingling. A wave of relief and euphoria crashed over her as the newborn's first cry pierced the air. She sobbed with overwhelming love when the nurse placed a tiny, pink-cheeked baby girl on her chest. Later, while Eva stepped out to notify family, Juliana cradled her daughter in her arms, marveling at her fragile perfection. In that hushed moment, she felt a fierce resolve bloom within her. She would protect this child at all costs. No matter what heartbreak she had endured, she would forge a path for both of them. Love, unconditional and powerful, pulsed through her like a fresh lifeline. A light knock on the door startled her from her reverie. She glanced up to see Derek standing in the doorway. He looked hollowed out, dark circles under his eyes, shoulders slumped. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The baby cooed softly. "May I come in?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Juliana hesitated. She could still taste the bitterness of his betrayal. Yet this was the father of her child. With a curt nod, she allowed him to enter. He approached slowly, hands trembling at his sides. Seeing the baby, his face contorted with awe and sorrow. "She's ours?" Juliana's throat constricted. "Yes," she replied, stroking the baby's forehead. "She arrived a little early, but she's healthy." Tears slipped down Derek's cheeks as he reached a tentative hand toward the infant. "I'm so sorry," he choked out. "I left. I was a fool." Juliana studied him, her guard firmly up. "She deserves better," she said softly, an unspoken boundary in her tone. He nodded, tears falling freely now. For a long moment, they stood in painful silence. Derek looked at the child he had neglected to anticipate, the woman he had betrayed. And in that sterile hospital room, the magnitude of what he'd lost and what he might never reclaim settled over him like a cold, unyielding weight. For the next few days, Derek visited the hospital daily. Juliana, still recovering, permitted him brief moments to hold their daughter, whom she named Aurora, signifying a new dawn after a night of darkness. Each time Derek took Aurora in his arms, a mixture of elation and despair flickered across his face, as though he was both grateful for the chance and tormented by regret. Conversations between Derek and Juliana remained tentative, laden with unspoken tension. She could see that the scandal had shattered him. Prescott Capital faced legal investigations, clients had fled en masse, and the board was on the brink of dissolving the company. Celeste, true to her opportunistic nature, had vanished into international territories, leaving Derek to bear the brunt of accusations. The man who once exuded unstoppable confidence now appeared fragile, haunted by the knowledge that he had torpedoed his marriage and lost his empire in one fell swoop. On her final day in the hospital, Juliana signed discharge papers and settled Aurora into a new car seat. Derek offered to drive them home, but she refused, opting to let Eva assist instead. Still, she did grant him a small window to speak privately in the hallway, away from the curious eyes of nurses and visitors. "I want to make amends," Derek said, his voice raw. "I'll do anything to help, even if it means stepping out of your life entirely. I just want to make sure Aurora is cared for. Financially, emotionally, whatever you decide." Juliana searched his eyes for sincerity. "I didn't choose single motherhood," she replied quietly. "But you left me with no choice, and I can't just forgive and forget. Not after the heartbreak, the scandal, everything." He nodded, tears brimming again. "I understand. I was blinded by ambition, and I don't even know what. I've paid for it, believe me," Juliana sighed. She felt the ghost of pity stirring within her, but also an undercurrent of anger that refused to be dismissed. If you truly want to be part of Aurora's life, prove it by being consistent. Show up without strings attached. She paused, looking away. "My lawyers are finalizing child support and custody details. I won't shut you out, but this isn't about you anymore. It's about her." He swallowed hard. "Thank you," he whispered. "I'm going to fix what I can, even if it takes the rest of my life." She offered a subtle nod, neither encouraging nor dismissive, and turned to walk back to Aurora's room. In that moment, she sensed that perhaps karma had run its course. Derek had reaped the whirlwind he sowed. Whether or not he could find redemption was another matter, one that would require far more than a few apologies and legal documents. As Juliana left the hospital with Aurora in her arms, a clear resolve guided her steps. She would love her child fiercely, build a life based on honesty and resilience, and never again allow herself to be defined by someone else's betrayal. Derek's regret might be genuine, but it was her own strength and her daughter's future that mattered most now. And so ends the tumultuous journey of Juliana Prescott, a woman whose love was once overshadowed by her husband's blind ambition. Abandoned in her most vulnerable moment, she found the strength to carry on and welcome her baby into a world free from the crushing weight of betrayal. Meanwhile, Derek Prescott, once riding high on success and a glittering mistress at his side, discovered that karma comes swiftly to those who disregard love for greed. Now humbled, he faces an uphill battle to prove he can be the father Aurora deserves. Thank you for joining us on this emotional saga of heartbreak and redemption. If Juliana's resilience moved you, please like this video to show your support. Share it with friends who might need a reminder that true strength often emerges from life's darkest trials. And subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories that remind us all, no matter how grave the betrayal, there is always room to rise from the ashes.